At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Joseph, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. So excited to be here.
Well, I'm really pleased to have you on the show. And, you know, it's a lot of fun to hear the story in the background of people that I interview. And so for the audience, number one, I know you have a couple of names, so I'd love for you to explain that. And then also just kind of talk about what brought you to this point in your life. What were the experiences that you had that brought you to write the book that you've written, and talk a little bit about that. And then also, were there any specific moments that said, all right, Joseph, it's time to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, I am publicly known as Dark Joseph Ravine. People call me DJR, or you can call me Joseph. Any of the two names are accepted. And here's my book, Watch Out, It's Nolan. It's basically very similar to the story of my life and the difficult things I faced as a child, to hopefully inspire educators, parents, and children to be understanding of each other. And, you know, especially when it comes to adults understanding children, I think that's something that's very important these days, because sometimes, you know, children could become very nasty and mean and could be bullies and abusers. And it all comes from feeling misunderstood or not heard or not talked or not spoken to and things like that. So I wrote this book on behalf of trying to inspire, mostly I would say parents and educators, to help them to be understanding of a child. When you don't know the backstory of where someone comes from, it's important to know that. On top of that as well, it's also meant to teach about children learning how to stand up for themselves, for children to learn to be kind to each other, and also for educators to learn how being kind can make a huge difference, especially when it comes to, you know, school environments.
You know, and I interviewed a fellow a few weeks ago that his whole focus was on education and on the educators. And his whole focus was, look, it's all about the children. It's all about the children. And so I love what you're talking about with this book. And, you know, what's interesting to me, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, you know, there are bullies in every dimension of our lives, whether it's elementary school, middle school, high school, college, even the workforce.
Absolutely. Everywhere. Bullying is everywhere these days. Crazy.
Yeah. And a lot of times we focus on the peer group that's doing the bullying. But as you had mentioned, there are sometimes that teachers, bosses, managers, whatever that is, are not aware that they are bullying other people. Now, you mentioned, what is your story? What motivated you to write the book? What did you experience as a child that now here you are as an adult that ultimately said, you know what, I need to write about this?
So I was picked on a lot by students in a school that was very toxic and didn't behave very well. The educators were also very racist and did not know how to properly treat the students, and they were allowing the students to do all kinds of bad things, such as bullying. You know, instead of, you know, they saw that I wasn't happy, and instead of helping me, they made the situation worse. And so it wasn't a very understanding environment. And I just want to say very openly, first, I would never blame children, because children are children and they don't know better. But who I do blame is teachers, because they're adults and they should know better. If you see a student not happy and crying and kids bullying a student, why would you carry on allowing that and then join in and make it worse? You're an adult. You should know better. You know, even I was told many times in my life, you know, you're an adult. You should know better than to do certain things. So
well, and
I don't believe in the same thing.
Yeah, let me interrupt you for a minute, because you brought up an interesting point. You know, you have teachers, and I'm aware of this from one of my friends here, that you actually have teachers that are bullying, actively bullying, be for whatever reason, who knows. But then you have also adults, whether it's teachers or adults or whatever, that observe the bullying and they don't do anything about it. It's not that they're bullying personally, but they're not doing anything about it. And in effect, by allowing that bullying to occur, they are actually participating in it.
Absolutely. And this is something that, I was told also as a person, for many people, a lot of the times, even though I have a passion to help make our future generation better and to help children, sometimes they tell me, you're an adult, you shouldn't be interacting with children. So that's kind of where I have to know my boundaries about how much you interact. Like, you can't be close friends with a child unless you're friends with their parents, or, you can't, demand that children, do stuff for you or give you stuff or things like that. So, even I've had my moments where, nothing critical, but I've had my moments where I didn't have the best interactions with children as an adult. So I kind of understand them too, because they did exactly very similar things I did, so sometimes you have to be an experience to know something.
Well, and let me ask you this question. Why were you bullied? What were the elements as you were growing up? Because there's always different things. I mean, here with my friend, and I've mentioned this before, it's because I'm in Thailand right now, it's a child that is trying to speak English and learning at home. And as he tries that in school, the kids laugh and the teacher says, don't need to know that, and is actually bullying the kid too. So, there are different types of things. Or I interviewed someone the other day that, they were very short and so forth. There are children that have learning disabilities that totally get bullied. What was your experience? Why were you bullied? At least based on. Go ahead.
So for me, it had more to do with religious reasons. It had also more to do with my that I didn't know how to interact well with people. I didn't know how to express myself well. I didn't learn well. I never had motivation to learn. It also had to do with the fact that I was very sensitive and I cried a lot. I also had a toxic environment outside of the school too. So it was not just the school that was toxic, but it was like my whole life in general. And also the feeling I couldn't speak to anybody because, even at the time, my parents didn't understand. I mean, today they understand, but back then they didn't. But, I felt very alone in the world once upon a time. And so I didn't behave right. And so I want to help people, especially children, who not have that experience of going through feeling like they don't have anyone they can talk to or things like that, or, things. But, as I mentioned previously, you got to know your boundaries. You can never help anybody who does not want the help. If parents don't want you to give them help, then don't give them any help whatsoever. So right now I try to maintain boundaries about how I help children.
Well, and for a child that's being bullied, because you experienced that, and now as an adult observing that, what would you say to the child? And let's say you have permission. Okay, I get what you're saying. All right, and quite honestly, as we look at the educational process, the teachers, the counselors within the school, they do have a responsibility to observe what's going on with the child emotionally, and
Absolutely.
then
it's their job.
Being able to talk to the parents and the student and really talk about what's going on there, and really be their friend in some respects. But back to the original question, what would you say to a child that's being bullied? What are some of the first steps that they could take if they were emotionally able to do this, to minimize that bullying and ultimately to somehow affect a change?
Well, for me personally, first I'd bring their parents. A kid has no authority to do something on their own. So first I'd bring their parents in, and then I would tell them that you have to understand that if you feel like you're not in the best environment, or if you feel like you're being hurt by these kids, and you feel you're not doing anything to trigger this, then maybe this isn't the right environment for you. Maybe you got to go find another environment where you feel more suited in. What's the reason you're getting bullied? Are you doing something that's making people bully you? Are you doing something that's causing you to be sad? You have to find the backstory of the child and find out what's making them not happy and how we can possibly undo that and how we can possibly make a difference. Because, when you don't know the backstory, then that's when all hell breaks loose. You got to know where people come from in order to feel the pain and find a resolution, because the backstory always makes it.
And that really puts the responsibility to some degree on the parents, doesn't it? And you hope, as you said, your environment didn't have the ability to do that. And in many cases, we all experience that to some degree. And so, I love the fact that there's a message here for parents that if your child is being bullied, number one, what's the home environment like? Are they able to talk to you about that? And if so, then can you get into a discussion without any judgment at all and find out what's happening? Why is it happening? There are things that a child can control, as you say, but there's some things that a child cannot control. If they have a learning disability, if they happen to be short, if they whatever that happens to be, they can't control.
Mm.
So
absolutely, and that's.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of say that, when people cannot control certain things, that's what needs to be understood. But it's not just the child alone. The parents, the teachers, the counselors, everybody as a whole needs to know that as well. Because, that way they can all work together to help the child too. There was a time I did believe in children trying to resolve things on their own. But then I realized that wasn't a good idea. That wasn't morally right. And that sometimes kids really do need the help of their parents and the teachers and everybody to all know it together. Because if you try to teach a child to do something on their own, it may create rebellions, it may create fights between parents and, a lack of behavior. And, I'm not for that as a person. My job is to make sure parents and children and educators and counselors are all happy.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because you're absolutely right. We cannot expect a child to handle that emotionally. There's a reason why they're being bullied, and that reason emotionally, whatever that happens to be, is going to prevent them from being able to really handle that. And then, as you say, it really gets to the parents, it gets to the teachers, it gets to the counselors. So when you were you bullied by one particular individual, and then others joined in, or was it a general group that always bullied you? What was your experience with that?
So I had this one guy that just would never stop bullying me. He just had such a passion to ruin my life and make me suffer. Many people forgot, but I still remember to this day. He even hosted an end of the year party and made sure I was the only one not invited. And unfortunately, I invited myself to the party foolishly, because at the time, I just didn't feel it was fair. I mean, if I had the intelligence I have today back then, I'd leave the school and never approach them from day one. But I remember all the bad things he's done, and he never ever apologized for hurting me. But, I don't know why people are hurt so much in their life where they can really do life ruining things to people. It's like how could you ruin someone's life and not care?
Yeah, and and the point that you just brought up, why do people bully? What is it in their lives that are causing them to bully other people?
And that's what I said. It's because they're hurt in their own life. They're not understood in their own life. They're sad in their own life. They feel like they're not being listened to or understood. And so they take that out on people. I know a particular environment of kids that misbehave, and I think it's because I blame the adults of that environment that are not doing a good job dealing with those kids. So the adults have a role in this too.
Well, they really do, and as you say, the emotional challenges that a bully is experiencing is as deep in all likelihood, maybe even deeper, than the emotional challenges of that individual that's being bullied. And so as teachers, as parents, there needs to be that focus on the bully also, and not from a negative standpoint, but rather from a standpoint of, let's understand what's going on here. How can we help them emotionally? How can we help them to gain a better sense of the goodness of who they are so that they won't bully?
Absolutely. And that's important, not only for just the kids, but the parents too. Because if at least the parents know where they're going wrong too with raising their child, then maybe they can understand that as well. And then they can become even better. And then they can build more bonds and connections with their children. And it'll be more like longer lasting and last longer term. Because if you think about it, when I see all the kids separating from their parents and basically not wanting anything to do with their parents after they reach a certain age, to me, that's sadness. That makes me very sad to hear about. To think that they don't understand each other, that's why they separated, and that's why they're not together anymore. And, I always think that nobody loves you like your family, and you have to do your very best to compromise and, understand each other if you want the relationships to last even above and beyond,
Well, that's true. And I know in one of the things you talk about, and I actually wrote this down because I like the terminology that you use, kindness for success. Let's go to the opposite side of this discussion. And rather than, really focusing on the bullying and all of that for a minute, let's talk about how kindness can bring an individual success, not only in their business, but more importantly in their lives.
Absolutely, because if you think about it, it's a strategic process. When somebody comes into your, like, let's say in a business in general, or comes to meet you in general, and you're nice to them and you help them and you give them what they want and you provide value to them and you make a difference, then that person says, oh, wow, this is amazing. I love this person. I'm going to recommend him to more people. Or, oh, I love this business. I had such a great experience. I'm going to recommend them to more. So when you're nice to people, that's how more people are generated. If you're mean to people, they say, ugh, I'm never coming back here again. Guys, stay away from him. He's not a good person or not a good place. And then that's when the business starts to deteriorate. So that's how kindness leads to success in a way of a formula. It's all a method. One nice person leads to another and to another and to another, and then that's how you continue to be successful, by being good to people.
Well, and talking about individuals who are challenged in life, that kindness can be a big thing. Share some stories that you've experienced where your kindness you have observed. And so many times we never know the end result of something that we do. It's very rare that someone will come back and say, hey, that smile that you gave me made all the difference in my life. We just don't hear that often. But do you have any stories where you were able to observe by your kindness a difference that was made in someone's life that you came across?
Absolutely. I've had many instances where I've helped somebody with their own life, how to deal with situations and how to, help them with other things. Like, there's been times that I've helped teenagers understand their rights and know how to not let people get to them and things like that. And, and they told me, you've made a big difference in our lives by saying what you were saying. But unfortunately, it created public outrage with the parents because of, sometimes parents don't agree with some of the things that are there. So that's kind of where I come from when I mean, you should, no matter when you're dealing with any minors or any children, always get parents involved to make sure they're all happy. Otherwise, even if you do something good for a child or you try to help a child or try to make some child happy, if the parent's not happy, then you've just done something bad and something wrong. So now it's my intention for this new year, as of 2024, to make sure that I make sure the parents and the children are both happy, So that way it's 100%.
And as we get into the adults, because what's interesting, when at what point in time in your life, because you were bullied, and I'm sure that caused all sorts of issues for you, at what point in time in your life did you overcome the effects of bullying, if you have, and how were you able to do that consciously?
Well, the truth is since I started my career of becoming famous and known in the public eye, and then once I started building my following on social media and I started growing and I figured out strategies, secrets from celebrities, how to go viral and how to do things. And now I could do that for anybody else. So I'm basically not only do I have my book and my TV show and influencer, but I basically manage my own marketing and my own self, and that I don't have to depend on anybody else. That's when I really found happiness in my life. And, I think that when you find happiness, that's the most powerful thing that anybody can, because money, success never can buy happiness. Happiness is something you have to decide, So that's how I overcame my problem.
And as you say, you did it. You took the responsibility to say, you know what, I need to overcome this. I need to do what I need to do to be successful, to be happy, to not feel like I can be bullied anymore. And so that's what you did.
Yes.
That's what you did. And how many followers do you have?
We're about to hit 1.1 million on Instagram. And then YouTube is, I think it's a little over 80,000. Twitter's over 100,000. And Facebook is almost 200,000. And then TikTok is 60,000.
Wow. That is amazing. And
yes.
You did
I
that
love marketing.
You did that on your own?
Yep. I'm a marketing fanatic, so I can do this not only for myself, but for anybody else. But keep in mind that with my agency, I don't work with just anyone when I market them. I have to trust them first. I have to like what they do. I have to be interested. Money doesn't buy me working with you. I have to genuinely like what you do. And, it has to be something that is good, because when you bring yourself out to the public, you're bringing yourself out to haters or mean people, and you need thick skin for things like that. So I have to make sure I'm careful with who I work with too. Otherwise, it looks bad on me.
Well, and what's interesting? I mean, here we are talking a little bit about business and marketing and so forth, but when you think about the fact that what you went through, you could have chosen to ultimately be a victim, and you could still be experiencing that victim mentality in your life. And I'm sure and I definitely know people who just live their lives as a victim. But what you did, your experience caused you, and you personally made the decision that rather than to be a victim, you were going to be empowered and use those experiences to not only help yourself, but to help others. And two ways that you're doing that: writing the book, which I think is amazing, that is going to help people, if they'll read it, to understand and get some ideas, and at least cause them to start to rethink their own lives as parents, as teachers, whatever that is. But even in business, where you're helping someone through your marketing to be successful in their business, that can make such a difference in their lives, for their family, for their loved ones, all of those types of things.
Of course, yeah. Having a huge following definitely does make a difference and does help a lot of people. The only downside is, there's mean people writing nasty things and haters and everything, and you really need thick skin to handle such a thing. For me, I have very thick skin because I found happiness in my life. So no matter how much hate somebody writes to me, I'll never be impacted by it ever, because I feel like I've accomplished, and I don't care what anybody has to say about me.
Well, it's interesting, because I see that a lot as I'm reading the news and other things, and where people are, doing their podcasts, they're doing their Instagram, they're doing all of those things, and all of a sudden they're getting this hate comments, and it's like, what on earth is motivating someone to write that type of comment to another individual? It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. But as Kylie Jenner once said, when people write negative things on social media, it comes from a place of them having their own issues. It has nothing to do with you. And as my mother taught me, hurt people hurt people. That means people that are hurt in their lives want to hurt other people. So,
Well, and I think that becomes the key, and I love that you said that, because I think that, as we were being bullied, I remember experience with one of my children where they were being bullied, and by an adult, and I did my best to help him to understand that it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them and what they're experiencing, and for whatever reason, they have to take it out on you. And I think that's something really important for people to understand, particularly the children, the teenagers, even the adults. When you're being bullied,
everybody, all ages need to understand this, because in that way, that's how they're going to learn and become better, and they're going to rise above it. You just have to know, even for me, with my book and everything, I try to help people and inspire people. You can't change people. I can only preach what I believe in and what I've experienced, and, do what I would do in certain situations, but, I can't change people. They have to decide if they want to accept the information or not.
Well, and that's the key, and I love that you said that too. Just the fact that as you're writing a book and as someone's reading it, there are people that are reading it and going to shut it, and they're not even going to understand what you're really doing. Other people will read it, and the goal, hopefully, is to motivate them to look at their own lives and then become curious enough that they start to do a little bit more research and, introspective work and those type of things, to where they can improve themselves because your book said something that motivated them.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point, people to learn, because if you actually read towards the end of my book, there's a little synopsis that says bullying is never okay. And so I write at the very end of it, in this story, Nolan has a helper. In life, children do not have helpers. That is why it is important to bring bullying to awareness, to ensure that it is no longer part of our community, country, or world. Bullying is never okay. And that means not only in schools, but everywhere.
So how do we promote kindness? What are your thoughts about what do we do as individuals to really promote kindness? Because it's one thing to be kind, and hopefully that's going to pass on, but it's another thing to be able to actually actively promote kindness that will influence others to also be kind, and maybe even beyond that, promote kindness themselves.
I'm glad you're bringing that up, because one specific strategy I learned from celebrities was learn to be a helper and a hero. Susie Orman once said, in business, it's all about helping people first, not money. And I say the same thing with kindness. Always think about how can you help somebody, make someone's life better, make somebody rise above all the negativity, take somebody out of their negative stage and put them in a positive one, because there's so many celebrities who are all about helping people. And that's kind of how I motivate myself to be the same way, all about helping people. But, of course, it has to be balanced. You can't help people who don't want it. You got to help people who do want it. So,
Well, and in business, I mean, if you're helping businesses to become much more productive, bottom line financially is improving. How do they help?
Well, I'm glad you're bringing that up, because the truth is when you sell an item or a service of any kind, you have to think, how can this item change somebody's life for the better? It's not just about selling items or buying stuff. It's about actually providing worthwhile value to somebody. So, for example, with my marketing, I would look at somebody and I would say, how can I turn this person into a superstar? How can I make them stand out? How can I make them look so good in front of people that it'll lead to opportunities, that it'll lead to more people coming to them, that it'll, so to me, it's more about helping people as much as you can. Like, for example, when you even sell an item, if you sell a kind of food or juice that's made to help people be healthier, now you're being a hero for that. You could sell items like I have a store called In Kindness for Success where we sell items that have the Kindness for Success logo. They're not anything that deals with helping people, but they're items that are made for people to remember to be kind and to promote the kindness message around the world based on the items that they buy. So I wouldn't say that there's any special life-changing effect on what I offer, but I'm not too sure in business how to fully always change people's lives, but that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, what comes to my mind, and it's a story that I experienced personally. My dad passed away in 2010, and he was a voice teacher in very good, nationally known opera voice teacher, classical voice teacher, and when he passed away, the university decided to have a memorial service for him, even though he had been gone, he had retired for years. And as I attended that memorial service, and they brought in the singers, they brought in people who were just telling stories about my dad and so forth, I walked out of there, and for me, this was the point in my life that changed my direction and gave me the real purpose and helped me to understand what my purpose could be. But as I walked out,
I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're bringing that. Yeah.
Yeah, let me finish on this. So I walked out and I'm going, here's what I heard. And I was telling my brothers and my sister this. I'm not sure they understood what I was trying to say, but here's what I heard. Norman is my dad. Yes, he was a great voice teacher. And he was, like I say, nationally known. But then they said, but more importantly, he gave us the will to win, to love, and to be successful. In other words, through his teaching, because of who he was and his communication with his students, his job was to teach them how to sing, and they did. But he gave them the ability to learn, to be successful, to do this, to give them the power to do that and empower them. And that had nothing to do with his job. It had everything to do with who he was and how he dealt with those around him. And I think it's interesting in business. So often, I have some colleagues that they tell me that in their business, what they really look for is what are their employees' purposes? What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish in their life? And as they focus on that and help them, they have greater and higher productivity. So anyway, make the comments that you wanted to make. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, what
there.
I wanted to say was I'm glad you're bringing up singing and entertainment, because you know how singing helps people? When you sing a song for people, you make them enjoy. So you're helping them that way. And then when you entertain people and you make them laugh, you're helping them that way as well. So that's also a version of heroic helping, if you want my honest opinion on that.
Well, it absolutely is. And as you say, not only from an individual standpoint of if you had that ability to sing and that heroism. Now, can I sing classically? No. Did I used to sing a little bit? Yeah, but at this point in time I can't. But every time I get on and listen to classical music and classical voices, it engenders something in me that brings about such a sense of happiness, of peace, of love. And I think for people, it's really important to understand that as you're experiencing some downturns in your life, oftentimes being able to listen to music, as you say, or, to go to a funny movie, or whatever that happens to be, can bring about and increase that level of emotion to where you go from anger or upsetness to joy and happiness. And even if it's just if it's just a moment, do that enough times and all of a sudden moments become more and more.
100%. And that's exactly what life is all about. Even Kim Kardashian once said, if you find true happiness, that's all that matters. You don't need money. You don't need success. You don't need revenge. You don't need anything in this life. Long as you're happy, that's all that matters.
Well, and you talk a lot about celebrities, and that can be somewhat of an interesting discussion because you see a lot of celebrities that are really doing good, though most of the time you don't know what they're doing. All right. Obviously, you seem to know. But you have celebrities also that are not necessarily doing good. They're saying things. They're being unkind. They're doing things.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of them that you know what happens, and I actually, because I deal with them, like I wouldn't say like 100% dealing, but I do partially deal with them. Like if you look at Britney Spears, for example, when she was mean to her fans and everything, when she mentioned in her court audio that she's been forced to go on tour against her will and forced to do things against her will and meet people against her will and be medicated because she did so many things against her will. That's why she was frustrated, and she just took it out on her fans and things like that. And so that's when I try to tell people that sometimes when people are mean, even celebrities, it's not personal. Sometimes people really go through really horrible things. And a celebrity life is not the easiest life, especially when you get a record deal or sports deal. You're going to be worked to your bone, and you're going to have to do things against your will. Otherwise, you get thrown out, So, it's very, very sad. The good thing about me, though, is at least I own my own marketing and I do my own investing in marketing. So I never have to worry about record labels or things like that. I can do everything all on my own, no problem. So I don't have like contracts or things that I need to follow. But, it's a very hard life to be famous because you really have to work for the people who you're doing. You're making money for 600, 700 people, which is the manager, security, the companies, people. You make money for everybody. You only keep a percentage of yourself as a celebrity.
Well, and you know what happens is, as you bring that up, again, I think it reemphasizes the point that you brought up earlier, that oftentimes when you see things going on that you interpret as being unkind, or it actually is unkind, whatever, it has nothing to do with you, but it helps to understand that that individual is expressing themselves out of frustration, out of whatever that happens to be. We don't understand what they're going through and how important it is to try to do that. Here's the interesting thing, though. How many times does an individual look at their own life? And I've experienced this just recently here in Thailand. It just frustrates me not to be able to understand people. And sometimes they'll yes, okay, great, this is how it's going to go, and all of a sudden it doesn't happen. And I recognize that, all right, they say yes because they don't understand, and I'm thinking that they understand and they're saying yes. And so then I get really frustrated, and there's been a couple of times where it's like, wow, you know what? I'm experiencing frustration. I'm experiencing some anger here internally. Why? And I think that it's important for people to understand and be aware that when they are starting to experience that and they can observe that in their own lives, that they need to start looking at introspectively what's going on in my life, and what do I need to change? What do I need to understand? How do I seek that level of understanding so that I don't personally experience that? Because when you personally experience that frustration, that anger and so forth, it can cause all sorts of illnesses and other things.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say to you that, at one point there was a time I thought celebrities were narcissistic and mean and egotistical and bad people. But once I really start to investigate about them and their lives and the difficult things they've been through, on top of being abused by their management and everything, I started having compassion. Britney Spears is a perfect example. I thought, because she was successful, that's why it was getting to her head. But then I realized, because she was in a conservatorship and she really was getting abused by her management, and she was just making money for so many people, and she was just getting taken advantage of so much, and it was so sad for her. Now I have a lot of empathy for her, and I feel for her. So
well, and I think that's important.
At the end of the day, I was going to say that at the end of the day, celebrities, one thing you should know, they are very big givers. They make money for so many people. They give to companies, they give to people, they give to their fans, they give so many things they give. They're big givers. And that's why to them, why they're successful is because they're heroes. And that's what I try to teach people about learning. You have to learn to be a hero and help people. Whatever you do, you have to help somebody. You can't not help somebody. Otherwise, you'll never be successful. Every celebrity is always helping.
Okay, so here's a question. In one of the things that you had mentioned prior to being on the show, talking about knowing your self-worth, it's fascinating to me that people really don't know their self-worth. And how do you teach someone that, when you get into meditation, when you get into some of these other things, the whole focus, the whole statements, the comments are, you are good, you are love, you are all of these types of things. Well, it's easy to say that, but how do you help someone to know their self-worth, where they really believe, you know what, in spite of everything that's going on in my life, I am worthy, I am good, I have a tremendous amount of self-worth?
Yeah. So as you were mentioning, the way you would know your self-worth is to believe in yourself, to love yourself, to be proud of who you are. There was also another, I don't know her name, another celebrity that said, people don't have to like you, people don't have to love you, they don't have to respect you, but when you look in the mirror, you better love what you see. And that means you need to love yourself above anything before anybody else can love you. Because any energy that goes on anybody else loving you, you're only hurting yourself. So that's why you have to work on trying to find your happiness and things you do good. And above anything, from all the things you do in your life, to find what presents the real you. And then when you do that, you can love yourself and be proud of yourself. And then success and other people will follow along with loving you if you be true to who you are.
Fantastic. And, as we close today, number one, how can people find your book? Let's talk about your book for just a second. How can people find your book so that they can access it and read it?
So my book is available on Amazon for anybody who's interested. And and if they want to find out more about me as Dark Joseph Ravine and the things that I do, they can go to www.darkjosephravine.com, or they could look up my name, Dark Joseph Ravine, in Google. You find out everything you'd like to know. And then, if people want to audition for my marketing services, I am exclusive. They can come to me for that as well. We offer a variety of things, plus kindness for success. We have a lot to offer people.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So as we close, in a very short, say 1-minute statement, what would be the message you want to share with the audience today?
The biggest message that I would share with this audience is be inspired by successful people, which includes celebrities or people that have gone out to be very, very, very successful. Because when people have gone out to be successful, that they have done certain things in their life to reach those stages in their life. And there's not a single successful person that has not failed before they got to where they got to. So be inspired by other people who are already successful, because that's what's going to motivate you to be successful. That's what I've been doing all my life.
And what is your definition of successful?
So I like to watch other celebrities or people that are successful in the world and in the media with whatever they do. And then they provide advice or motivation. Learn to love yourself. You don't need certain things in your life. You can be happy without certain things. And, if you put, let's say, number one in my life is always God first, you'll have a great life. God is always number one in my life personally. So, from everything that I've learned from them, from the celebrities, I've become successful in my own way.
Okay. And success isn't always about money, as you say.
No. If you're happy, that's all that matters. Success does not need to be money. Success can be happiness, and could be you enjoying your life, It could be just having fun, You don't have to have money, because life's not all about money, Of course, you need money to survive, I have a side job as well in addition to what I do, but it's not all about money to me. To me, it's all about enjoying the moment while I'm living and being
Amen.
happy.
Amen to that. And Joseph, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. You've shared some really fascinating concepts and ideas and motivations. And folks, I hope that as you've listened to this, that you've been touched in some way to realize that, number one, your self-worth. Number two, that be kind to people. And number three, understand that if someone is not being kind to you, realize in most cases it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with what they're experiencing, and try to understand that. So again, thanks for being on the show. Folks, thanks for listening. We look forward to having you join us again soon.